Hey folks, it's Bob out here at Sorrento Hill again. Thanks for stopping by and checking out another video. Keep gaining subscribers, which sometimes really surprises me, but appreciate you guys stopping by. Hopefully today will be one of those that'll be kind of interest to people, especially if you're looking to build a cordwood home. And of course, I'll do some of my usual rambling and share with you a little project I'm working on as a side hustle, but any rate, what I'm doing right now is getting ready to mix up a batch of mortar so I can do some cordwood and get closed up underneath this window. First thing I'll do, I got some sawdust soaking here, so I'll get it draining out, and I got me a little strainer here that I use for scooping it out, and it just so happens that about 4 strainers full of sawdust is what it takes for one batch. So get the excess moisture draining off of that. And again, I've just got me a little frame. I'm knocked together out some rough 2x4s and some window screen stapled to the top of it. It strains it out pretty good. And then my mortar mix. Now I was using Portland cement and the lime, and they were totally out of it for about 2 weeks, and they had this type S masonry cement, which has some lime already mixed in it, and of course I'm adding some more to it, and it works good and hard. It's a little cheaper. It actually has a little longer working time. So there's actually more lime and other ingredients in this than there is Portland cement. So I take 2 scoops of that, and then 3 of the lime. Ooh, I don't know if I'll have enough. I used 3 light ones on the lime, a little below my mark. It's not scientific, but works pretty well. And this bag is about gone. I use about a little over almost 2 bags of lime per bag of mortar, because I'm using 2 of the mortar mix in our masonry cement rather, and 3 of the lime. Now hopefully this time I won't do what I've done before when I've shown making the mix and get busy talking and lose count and add too much of one or not enough of another. Okay, and that's my 3rd one, I think. One of these bags of utility sand gets me about takes 3 bags of sand for 2 batches of mortar, something like that. Or 2 bags of sand, right? 2 bags of sand gets me 3 batches of mortar. I gotta go get another bag of sand. Now what some folks do, see, I've got 1 in there, right? 2, this is number 2. Now what some folks do is they'll either order it by a dump truck load. Okay, that's 2. Don't let me forget, that's 2. And this is 3. They'll either order it by a dump truck load or by 500-pound bags and have it delivered. It's cheaper that way, but the problem is storing it and keeping it dry. And I'd have to build me some way to keep it dry or to store it. And rather than doing something like that and hassling with it, it costs me a little bit more this way, but I just buy what I need as I need it, and I don't have to store as much stuff. And I also won't end up with 200 or 300 pounds of sand left over when I'm done trying to figure out what I'm going to do with it all. Two of those. Nope. Didn't get it quite full. All right. And then I'll do the dry mix. Get all the ingredients mixed up, and it's kind of easy to tell because it'll turn a gray color. Then I'll dump in my sawdust. And you can see as I add the sawdust, the moisture from the sawdust knocks down the dust from the mixing. And I just let that mix for a little bit until it gets about right. Then I add my water. And our water pressure has been really, really low. And then 2 of the water. And now it's just hurry up and wait. Let it stir and mix. I keep an eye on it. I just keep an eye on it, look for any dry mix that's not incorporated yet, and let it run until it's all uniformly mixed. Had some bugs in my tub. It wouldn't hurt the mortar mix, it would hurt the bugs. And I know this may sound sappy of me, but unless a bug's trying to eat my house or eat me, I let them go. Unless they're a tick. If they're a tick, they must die. And do yourself a favor, if you get yourself a mortar mixer, a cement mixer, be very diligent about rinsing it out after a load. I have neglected to do that every once in a while, and it gets mortar then stuck on the inside. You can't get all that off, and then mortar loves sticking to mortar, so it'll want to build up. And periodically I bring my pressure washer over here, and I'll use it to knock off as much of the accumulated mortar as I can. But what it does is that way it doesn't all slide out as easy. And you'll find if you're doing regular mortar like you would for bricks, um, it's a little thinner than this. Uh, you wouldn't be able to take brick mortar and make a ball with it like that that's going to hold its shape. It would immediately squish out. So this is a little thicker, and it's certainly thicker than concrete. If you're using it for mixing cement or mixing concrete, it would pour out a lot easier because it's a lot thinner to get it to flow. So I have to I scrape it to get the last little bits out, because every little bit of it's money, and I need all of it I can get for building my house. All right. And that's going to be pretty good consistency there. And then I'll split it. I used to do all the work from inside or from outside, one of the two, depending upon how high I was on the wall. And then I'd have to go on the other side and patch it up, and it just didn't look as good. And someone suggested that what they do is they divide the mortar up, and they do the outside from the outside and the inside from the inside, and the results are better. And so I started doing that, and it's got two benefits. One is I'm only toting half as much mortar at a time, which is a lot lighter, and it's a whole lot easier to get consistent mortar bead results. So. Okay, that's the one I'll use. That's the one I'll use for inside, and the little green one I'll use for outside. And clean out the mortar mixer. One batch of mortar made. All right, I'll see you inside, and we'll get started on putting in cordwood. Well, I'm still low enough on the wall that I'm using my stool whenever I can. What I'm doing here, closing up underneath this window, and you notice I put the blue painter's tape on it so that I don't have to worry about keeping mortar off the wood, which speeds things up. It took me a few of them before I figured that little trick out. But what I used to do is I would go all the way across, because I like doing nice straight rows. Start at the beginning, go to the end, left, right, and just do it in rows all the way up. Well, then I'd end up with a row up to here, all the way across, and then I'm having to try to shove mortar in and shove insulation in there, and figuring out how I can get the insulation in there, and fill the cavity fully, and it was a pain in the neck. And one day I thought, you know what? If I go at an angle, I got room to work. So what I'll do is my next couple logs will go in here, and then I'll put one up here, and I'll be able to push it in from the side. Same thing with the insulation. Like I'm getting ready to fill in this insulation cavity here, and it's easy. See, I got room to work, and I can actually see that I'm making progress and see what I'm doing here, and it makes it go a whole lot easier. And it's just one of those things that I learned along the way. Someone else probably would have figured it out quicker. Sometimes it takes me a little bit, but once I figured it out, I pretty much got it. And again, so that just fill that space up. That way I know I've got insulation good and snug, not packed in real tight, because that takes the insulation uh, uh, factor out of it. But that I don't have gaps there in my insulation, um, so that I'll end up with a cold spot or a hot spot. And then I'll have to squirt this down. Oh, wrong bottle. I had to buy me a new squirt bottle. That one got to where it wouldn't work. This one works real well. And squirt this down real good, so that the old work doesn't suck the moisture out of the new work. And then what I'll do here is I'll just work within this space here and get all the way up to the top. And then I'll come over to this space and I'll have to put 2 or 3 in here to get it up to this level, and then up to the top, and just go down at an angle. And it just, boy, it's a whole lot easier that way to get my mortar in and to get my insulation in. All right. I'm doing the farmers market, and I was going every weekend, but there's not as much traffic as I had hoped, and not as much of a market for the craft items. I do fairly decent, but I've got so much going on here, and that I just really don't have. I need to do some work here on some of those Saturdays, so till we get this house built. So what I've been doing is just going like the first and third Saturday. So I skipped last Saturday. I'll be going this coming Saturday. And but one of the vendors there, she likes the stuff that I make and likes the style of things that I make, and we've talked off and on during those slow periods, and she'd stop and talk with my wife and I. And so she asked me if I ever did bigger projects, because she liked the stuff I did, but she's wondering if I ever did bigger projects. She and her husband bought one of those fancy purple mattresses, and they didn't like the frame they had with it. Their floor's not real level, and the frame doesn't have good support. And the purple mattress warranty requires certain conditions for a frame, and she wanted a frame. And I wanted something. Their house is like a log cabin style house, and it's got wood inside, and so she wants something that's going to fit in with that. So she commissioned me to make a bed for her, and I'll show you that. My wife, believe it or not, she was kind of excited about it, because instead of $20 or $30 for the small items, I can make something like a bed frame and get several hundred from it. So that's a little different. Okay, well, let me go get my other batch of mortar. I'm not doing a whole bunch right now, just enough to put a couple logs in, and then I'll go do on the outside, and I will be back and fit a couple more logs in here. All right, so that's what I do there. Get my bucket there, gloves, get any mortar, any insulation that's dripped out of the way, and then I'll do my spraying. So I gotta patch the roof on my kiln, and I'm beginning to wish I'd have gone ahead and spent the money to put the corrugated, the clear corrugated plastic sheets on there. A roll of heavy ground cloth, a heavy plastic, clear plastic, is a whole lot cheaper. I mean, it costs about one sheet or less than one sheet of the clear plastic corrugated sheeting, but it doesn't last a long time. So I'm always out there fixing it. And I think if I weren't further along on getting the house built, I'd probably go ahead and do that. But I'm going to be building a different side, probably a smaller kiln, a more permanent type kiln um, out of plywood, and use treated wood for the floor versus what I've got now. So I hate to go spending the money when it won't be necessarily reused. Of course, there'd be something I could use it for. All right. And then I'll come up there again and be ready to go. Now, again, part of the reason you see me patting and fussing with it is the smoother I get it when I'm putting it in with the back of my finger, is the quicker it is to tuck point. And then I just kind of eyeball it and see that I've got about the same level on the inside and the outside. All right, back in I go. All right, so now I get my insulation, pack that, put insulation in this space. Now a lot of people in the cordwood, what they do is, instead of, like, I'm using this loose cellulose insulation, but what a lot of people do is they'll use sawdust, kind of a coarse sawdust, and you mix like 10 parts sawdust and 1 part lime, and just stir it, mix it all together. What the lime does is the lime um, keeps bugs away. It keeps bugs out of it, and it also helps to uh, prevent any kind of mold and mildew issues. And they'll actually use sawdust in between the logs. And lime also has some fire retardancy qualities, from what I understand. I don't know, but at any rate, so I opted to use this loose cellulose insulation. It's easy to work with. It's not that expensive, and I guess more and more people are going to something like that, and it's a 85% recycled material, so that's a good thing, right? Again, dip the log in the water on the ends, get them wet. Someone asked on one of the videos, "Aren't you worried about putting that moisture in there with the logs, and your logs not dry?" Well, these logs are down to around 12% or less moisture when I go to use them, and they don't really absorb enough. They don't absorb enough through the dunking to get bad. And then you see what I do is I use my level here to kind of square up to the side, make sure that I've got my squared up to the side of my window box, and that way I make sure that I'm going to be keeping my wall as straight as possible, which is a good thing. A couple of my earlier walls kind of run in and out. It is what it is, right? And again, the only bad thing about doing it, some from the outside and some from the inside, is there's a lot of back and forth and in and out, but it does produce a better result, so it's well worth it. And I said I like to look better, and it's just easier to make it work out. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and put some mortar up on here too, and I'll do the same on the other side, and that way I'll be getting ready for my next piece. And I'll put a smaller log in here, a couple smaller logs, and then just enough in this corner of it here, um, or this edge of it here, just enough mortar so that when I get packing mortar in here, it doesn't make this log want to move. It kind of holds it in place. And again, you see using the back of the glove, kind of smooth it out and get it where I want it to go. All right, back outside. Yeah, I'm going to put this angled piece in there. That'd be a good place for it. It's a lot easier to fit in too this way. All right, see, there you go. Perfect spot for an angle piece. And then I've got some smaller pieces that I'll put in here going forward. And again, I'll take my flat edge and make sure that I'm squared up, flush with my window box. And just pack my mortar in. I got a small one that'll go in there. And I'm about running out of small ones. I'm going to have to spend some time peeling bark off some more small ones. My wife had been the one doing that, but with us, and she'd spend most of her Saturdays running a pressure washer, peeling logs for me, especially the smaller stuff. But with us doing the farmer's market and with some of her work hours, she hasn't been able to do that as much. So I'm kind of falling behind on my mortar, or on my small logs. And then let me see if I can fit that piece in. I try to keep my mortar joints as small as possible. Yeah, that's not going to fit. I try to keep my mortar joints as small as possible because the bigger they are, the bigger the mortar joints are, the more likely they are to crack. Nice small piece here. And I just wanted to make sure I'm actually going to be able to fit it in, because I've got to fit it in. Yeah. And that. And this other log has a hump on it. So, and I got to fit it in between here. Okay. Okay. Yep, I'll be able to make that one fit. And then I'll put mortar on the top of that. And I think that one's going to stay where it is. And then I'll just put in my insulation around it. Again, this was a pain when you're using when I would do this all the way across, and that's all the space I had all the way across, and I had to kind of come in from the front, and man, it was just a pain in the neck. This is a whole lot easier. You see, I got plenty of room to work here, and I'll go on the outside, and I'll put my mortar on the outside, and then I'll come close it in around the top and put my next piece over here. All right, so I've got this one closed in on the outside. And now I'll close it on this side, and I'll see what my next piece of wood's going to be. And again, the reason why I squirt the water is so that, like, especially this wood here, it's so dry, it's very dry, and it'll suck the moisture right out of the mortar. And you want to keep that moisture in it to let it have a long, slow cure time. Because if you can slow the set time of it, let it take a while to set, well, then you're less likely to get cracks and shrinkage. If it sets up too fast, cures too fast, why, you're more likely to get cracks in it and to get some shrinkage in it. Those are both things that you don't want. All right. And I'll clean that up as I tuck point. Again, like I said, I'm able to get in here without too much trouble and pack my, stuff my insulation in there. I should quit saying pack, because I'm not really packing it. Stuff my insulation in and make sure I don't have any voids in my insulation space. Well, I'm done with cordwood for the day, so I'll show you where I've gotten to. As you can see, I'm up underneath the window, and I've got that last little bit to do that over in this corner that I'll do as I bring this side up more. So that's where I'll be starting next, over there to the left of the window, and I'm mostly closed up under it. You know, it's always kind of a sense of satisfaction when I get filled up under a window, because then it starts looking like a real wall. And then you can't see through it except for the window. It starts looking more and more like a wall. So that's what it looks like from the outside. And I'll be starting this area right behind my head on my next round of cordwood, and I'll do 2 or 3 rows up, and then I'll be to the point where I can fill in the rest underneath the window. Okay, and as promised, I told you I'd show you a little project I'm working on. One of the vendors at the farmers market said that they wanted to, they liked my work, and so they wanted me to make a bed for them. So what I've done is I've got, I have an oak tree that I cut down, rather small oak tree, but what I'm doing is I cut 18.5-inch sections out of the log out, and then I'm cutting 2 of the sides flat. Oops, sitting on top of sawdust. Sitting them flat, and this post, for instance, it's going to be the well, if you're standing at the foot of the bed, this would be the left rear. So this would be at the head of the bed, on the right hand side of the bed, as you're laying on it. And I got just mocked up some pieces of wood, and what I'll do is my rails, they're actually going to be 2x8s. I'll take the factory rounded off edge. It's just some old piece of pressure treat that I've got, and cut a 45 on them, and they'll go, excuse me, let me get this out of the way. They'll go like this, one here, and then the other one with the 45 will meet up, and then I'll use some 3/8 lag bolts going through here and into this oak post to hold it up. So when you look at it, you'll have the oak post, and now you will see the lag bolts, two of them, but you won't see end grain of the wood because there's a bevel here that gives it a little bit more. They meet at a 45, they're mitered, so that that gives them a more finished look. So everywhere you look at it around, you see the cross grain, you don't see end grain. So, and then there'll be a 2x6 on the back side of it, and then the plywood that'll rest on the 2x6 and on top of the leg to support the bed. So that's what I've got planned. Just a little mock up there, a mixture of the rustic with some more fine, and it's actually kind of designed after what we're going to do for a bed. So that's one of the things that I'm working on. And I've got here, I've started working on that curved crooked branch that I showed you earlier, that used to be the top of a tree. I've got all the bark off that. I've taken off some of the soft stuff that was on it because it sat on the ground too long, and sanded it some, cleaned it up some, and I'm going to be making this into a chandelier that will hang over the dining room table. And it's just some of the fun things that I like to do, repurposing something that, instead of throwing this on the fire and burning it, I'll turn it into a nice chandelier. And instead of going to the store and buying posts, or buying 4x4 or 6x6, or buying some round fence post or something like that, well, I'll just use these, use that oak tree that I had to get out of the way so that I could cut a cedar down, and I'll use that for bed posts. And I tell you, this will be a good sturdy bed. It's not going to move around or go anywhere. So, all right, well, I got to clean all the insulation dust and the mortar dust and everything off of me, and call it a day. Just wanted to share with you kind of the process I'm going through on closing in under the door or under the window. And I'm pretty excited to see that cordwood all the way up to the bottom of that window. And now I'll start on the rest of it and get that all closed in. Once I get this wall section done, the whole front of the house will be done. And then I'll be starting on the one remaining side. So pretty excited. Now I just got to get my saw back so I can cut down some more logs, because by the time I get done with this wall, I'll be getting pretty low on logs. So, and if it weren't for that solar kiln, I'd be in trouble. I wouldn't be able to keep up. All right, this is Bob out here at Serenity Hill. Thanks for stopping by. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for liking and subscribing. Thanks for sharing some of your time with us on our adventure here. I hope you learned something, maybe to inspire you a little bit. Don't be afraid to get out there and try something that you've never, ever done before. Remember, you came into this world not knowing anything. You've had to learn everything you know to this point. You can learn one or two other things and have some fun doing it, save yourself some money, and have the satisfaction of knowing, I did that. This is Bob at Serenity Hill. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll talk to you on the next one. Bye.